young children from our continent. I can say that according to the government of Somalia, we have a Minister of Environment and Climate Change at federal level, and it is a new institution. Only we are working 3 years. But I can say we are child friendly. So always we do awarenesses and policy integration is in our policies according to the nationally. Always we integrated to the children sectors and we discuss with them. I can see here our young champion Nafisa. Nafisa is here. She's always with us. We call her all discussions. I am proud that today she's with us and she's with us what the government of Somalia is doing. So according to the main documents that we have, Somalia is submitted our NDC 3 this year, and it has a dedicated chapter for youth and children, which makes ambition for how Somali children will use climate finance will integrate in this. And also we have a national adaptation plan. It has also chapter for youth and children. And in national context, we have a document called a National Transformation Plan, which has a document that the government is using from 2025 to 2029. It has 8 pillars, and every pillar, one of the most enablers is inclusion of youth and children. So I can say the inclusion of the policies and all the steps that the government is taking is child friendly, and also dedicated to develop a document called a National Environment and Climate Action with the youth and children in Somalia, which completed now, and that Somali youth and children, they work together. And also we have like campaigns called Green School campaigns. We go to the schools in the show and we give the children some trees, and they not only giving them, but we are teaching them how they can protect this tree, and when they protect this tree, what will benefit from this tree. So they work together, and again, I'm saying the witness and advisor that work is mostly together. Today is with us is in the visa, so the child carrier of the system. Please, can you make one clap for the visa? That is our mostly female young children in Somalia that we have. So I can say a round of applause again. So I can say Somalia, all the documents, all the policies, all the dialogues that we are doing is a child inclusion and child friendly. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to give you another follow-up question just to explain a little bit more on the school initiatives that you have, so we can really think around that as you around your school activities. Now my question goes to Sam from the African Community of Experts. So we really need you to give us a presentation on the legal and policy implications of the International Court of Justice ruling that just happened. We've been interacting with it online, but what exactly is it? How do we interact with it as civil society organizations? How do we interact with it as children? How do children fit into the broader discourse of the ICC ruling?
Thank you very much for that question. I think it's one of the landmark decisions or policies, actions that took place recently. The International Court of Justice is the main judicial organ of the United Nations. And in July 2023, it released an advisory opinion on the obligations of states with respect to the climate crisis. So this opinion was requested by the UN General Assembly. So the UN General Assembly, meaning the Assembly of all states of the United Nations, requested the court, the International Court of Justice, to answer 2 questions. The first question was, what are the legal obligations of states under international law to protect the climate system and the environment? And then the second question was, what are the legal consequences of states that cause significant harm to the climate? The breach, what is the legal consequence of the breach of the obligation? So first, the court was asked to clarify what is actually expected of states in this crisis, legally speaking, in a binding manner. And second, when states breach that obligation, what should be the consequence? So it's important for us to understand how these questions were addressed by the court and what this means for our work in the climate justice sector, specifically for children. In answer to the first question, the court said that states have various obligations coming from the climate change treaties, the human rights treaties, international customary law, and many other binding obligations. So, for example, it says that there is the international goal of limiting global warming from 1.5 to 2 degrees is not actually a flexible goal where we can say that we can work towards 2 degrees. The binding goal under the Paris Agreement, according to the court, is the 1.5 degree goal. So we states have an obligation to make sure that all the measures they take align with the 1.5 degree goal. The second thing that is clarified is that the nationally determined contributions that the states submit to the UN in fulfillment of their climate obligations are not as voluntary as previously expected or previously thought of. States must ensure that they embody the highest possible ambition, reflecting their highest efforts to reduce emissions to combat climate change. So when we assess what the government of Somalia or what the government of Ethiopia or what the government of South Africa is doing, we have to look at the national circumstances, the capacity of that state, and is that state acting in due diligence and taking the maximum possible efforts. That is what's expected of states. The third one is there is customary international law, meaning that even if states, for example, we hear that the United States is leaving the Paris Agreement and we panic, you know. So what the court clarified is that there is customary international law. Customary means whether you sign a treaty or not, it's binding upon you to prevent significant harm to the environment. So this is an obligation that applies to all states in the world, whether they are a party to this treaty or that treaty or not. So these are important for us to be aware of and see how we can apply it. And maybe just to say a bit about what the implication of this is. When the court said that human rights law applies to climate crisis, it means that children's rights law itself, the whole children's rights law, the civil, political, economic, social rights of children, apply in the way we interpret the obligations of states. It means that the best interest of the child, we all know that the best interest of the child should be the primary consideration in all decisions and actions that affect children. So any decision and action that affects the child, anything that's related with the climate, we know directly affects children. Children have told us that in the declaration, they have told us that now, that how much climate change affects all parts of their life. So that means the states have a binding, African states, all African states, and of course globally all states in the world, because we have the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child that applies to 192 states, but also we have the African Charter on the Rights of the Child that applies specifically to Africa. So both these instruments tell us that the primary consideration must be the best interest of the child. And it's very clear to understand what is the best interest of the child, right? I don't have to say that. In terms of the consequence of the breach, so when states do breach this obligation, which is usually the case, because we are currently in a world that's heading to a 2.7 degree warming or so, while we're trying to limit warming to 1.5. So we are not on track at all. So almost all of us are breaching, all states are almost breaching their obligation when it comes to the climate crisis. What is the implication? Failure of the state to take appropriate action to protect the climate system from greenhouse gas emission constitutes an internationally wrongful act, which means that states may injured states or communities which are injured by climate change have a right to full reparation. Full reparation means restitution or being returned back to the states you were. For example, if you're affected by flood, those who pollute, countries who pollute, or organizations, companies who pollute, they have a responsibility to reinstate you to a position you would have been if you were not a victim of that flood. Or this applies to all kinds of climate events, slow onsets such as droughts, but also sudden events like cyclones. An action to restitution, compensation, to be compensated for the harm or the loss and damage that you suffered. Satisfaction, guarantee of non-repetition. Guarantee of non-repetition means that we have to reform systems to make sure that this never happens again. So the court finally said that this needs to be determined by a case-by-case basis. This means this gives us the necessary legal tools to go to courts, to go to national courts, as well as national and international courts, to affirm children's rights. Children who are already affected by the climate crisis. And that millions of children in Africa to take action based on this legal obligation. So it gives us a very strong legal tool, set of legal tools that we can apply. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. I think that was quite comprehensive. It gave us an idea. Some of the questions I was actually planning to give as a follow-up, you've more or less responded to them. So I'll take it back to our child rep, the first child rep. So how do you view climate change in your personal life? How has it affected you? Is it affected you in terms of your health, in terms of your education? And by saying you, I don't mean you personally, I mean as a child. For example, you are coming from Southern Africa,
education, we were not able to go to schools because of the severe flooding that happened in Kenya at that time. It killed over 174 people and displaced about 50,000 households in Nairobi and other parts of the country. So climate change has really affected us. Also, the children who stay in the northern part of Kenya, the Turkana, Marsabit, they're not able to go to school because number one, there's drought in their country, lack of food. So you can't learn without food. You know, you are hungry, you can't learn, can't understand anything. And also the school infrastructure, there are no schools in the area. And if there is a school in the area, it's very far, like rare. There are rare schools in the places. Places like Kisumu, which have been facing some flood also issues because they are around the lake with the Lake Victoria. So things like that have been affecting also. I have a friend who passed on during the El Nino in Nairobi. Yeah, and also I have a couple of people who I know who are displaced by the climate change. And actually in the news, about 2 years ago, it was announced that a child in Turkana was about to die, and the government took action, but it was a bit late. So unfortunately, the child passed on, but the government tried to take action to support the child because lack of food, and the child was extremely thin and skinny. So that led to the death of the child. And also there were some cases of about a child who was a firstborn taking a chameleon and trying to burn it in fire so that he can be able to provide food for the younger ones, which, you know, a chameleon is not healthy for eating, which also led to some health issues and unfortunately death too. So climate change has really affected the life of children, the education of children, the health because of some diseases of malnutrition, lack of food. There are some diseases that are caused maybe the waterborne diseases like cholera and others, so many things. And also we have things like FGM or early marriages or sexual activities that have been happening in places like other counties like Samburu, where because we have some floods or distractions or disasters like that when they happen, then you are the one who is forced to get married to a certain community so that your father or your family can get food for them to provide for the other children. So a girl has to sacrifice to go and get married to a certain community or engage in some activities which are not safe for them.
Thank you so much. That was very comprehensive. I think for adults in the house and some academics in the house, you can actually come up with an entire paper just presenting on what he just mentioned in terms of how climate change affects children. It's funny when I was speaking to you, I said from Southern Africa and you are from East Africa, but exactly what you say is what is happening in Southern Africa. So Southern African girl, just in a minute, how is climate change affecting you?
Okay, thank you very much. In Malawi or Southern Africa, we experience a lot of problems. First of all, we have in education. In 2023, Malawi was hit by a cyber threat, in which a lot of children were not going to school. There's hunger in Malawi, the current state in Malawi. There's hunger. Children are not eating. Children are not having a good education. Someone said yesterday in a course that the best gift you can ever give to a child is an education. Not just an education, but a conducive education. So, putting the hunger, we have this plant in Malawi call it, in our local language, we call it jilete. It's a plant which is very irritant. When it gets in contact with your skin, it's very itchy, it's very irritant. But then children were eating that. Is this an Africa that we want? Answer me. Is this an Africa that we want? We don't want an Africa in which children are suffering day and night, endlessly being tormented, when meetings are being held every single day, every year, every month, every week. But then, let us remember that one child we left at home, who today hasn't eaten anything, who for the rest of the year will not be learning because of the current situation in the country. We don't want this Africa. We want climate justice. The time is now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm hearing something new, a new concept. Like I said to the academics at the house, you can also try and study around this. There's a new component she just brought out, the issue of invasive species and how they are now getting to the food security space. When we've been talking about invasive species, we've only been talking about how they affect maybe livestock and animals, like physiologically, but now we are interacting with a situation where invasive species are now becoming part of a food security initiative. I think this is quite an interesting and enlightening session. Lastly, I would like to give to Sam just 1 minute also. Explain how the ICJ ruling interacts with soft laws like the GC26, and how do we come into the space maybe as children and as CSOs. Also touch a bit on the issue of child litigation around climate change vis-a-vis the ICJ ruling.
Thank you. Maybe I'll start from child litigation because as the two children who spoke right before me rightfully demonstrate to us, children are actually the agents of change when it comes to climate change in the world globally, but also in Africa. So we have seen that climate litigation is at an infant stage in Africa, it's just starting. But even the little litigation that's taking place in places like Uganda, places like South Africa, is being led by children. Children actually won a case in South Africa called the Cancel Hall case, taking on the government of South Africa for lack of incorporation of children's rights consideration and lack of participation of children in environmental impact assessment of a company, coal company. So children are already in the courtrooms in different countries. This is already starting. What this advisory opinion gives us is the additional tools, the arguments that we need to actually go to each and every country and for children to actually continue and strengthen this effort. For the soft laws, the issue of the soft laws, I think, again, what the advisory opinion gives us is the minimum threshold that's expected. So whenever we interact with different soft laws or different, including NDCs or national adaptation plans, we know what the minimum threshold should be now, and that's a legally binding threshold. So we can no longer negotiate, we can no longer use the charity approach, charity model in terms of human development cooperation. So in all sectors, it tells us that what the requirement is, what the standard is, vis-a-vis what we've been doing. And what we've been doing is actually not what has been required by the law all along.
Okay. Thank you so much. Then to Director, just last remarks, especially around the issue of child school initiatives. Just a minute.
Thank you very much, and I wanted to highlight two things. One from China, we said, the Africa that we want, if we want the Africa, make consideration children, we need climate financing, specifically for children. So as Africa, we need, when we are developing projects, we have to include components that's specific for children. And also we need advocacy and knowledge exchange. We have to add our curriculum, environment, and climate change understanding. The school is the home that the children understand everything. So if we add our curriculum from grade 2 until grade 12, sessions related environment and climate change, maybe Africa will change. That's my option. According to the initiatives that we do in the schools, and we selected 10 schools in Mogadishu, and we provided every school more than 500 trees, and then for every class from grade 1, grade 2 until grade 12, and also the young women and young men, they work with us together, and also we wanted to decentralize that initiatives into our federal member states that can make Somalia make grading, and also the students understand what it means of these trees. And all these trees, it is the part of tackling climate change. So,
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to all our panelists. Some of the issues that have been brought up are very key to all of us in this room, and I think all of us were taking note. There's a component that comes with climate change and its effect to children that we are mostly silent about. The issue of climate change and the nexus of children with disabilities or children living with disabilities. In a minute, I want to give our last panelist, Shaban from Egypt, just in a minute, explain to us what climate change means to you and how it affects you as a child living with a disability. Just a minute, he's our last speaker, and we are rounding off.
أنا شعبان من مصر، عندي 15 سنة.
He is Shaban, is from Egypt, is 15 years old. It's very happy in attend today.
أنا النهارده أكلمكم عن التحديات الأساسية اللي بيواجهها الأطفال من ذوي الإعاقة بسبب التغيرات المناخية. 1. الصحة، إن هم ما بيقدروش يمارسوا حياتهم بشكل طبيعي لأن الأجهزة الطبية اللي بيستخدموها بتبوظ، والحرارة الشديدة بتسبب لهم ارتفاع في ضغط العين وصعوبة في التنفس. النقطة الثانية التعليم، إن هم ما بيقدروش يتعلموا كويس بسبب إن المدارس بتقفل بسبب التغيرات المناخية، وده بيأثر عليهم بيخليهم يخسروا فرصة التعليم. النقطة الثالثة الرفاه النفسي، التغيرات المناخية بتسبب لهم ضغوطات نفسية ما بيخليهمش يعرفوا يمارسوا حياتهم بشكل طبيعي، وده طبعا بيأثر عليهم فبيبقوا محتاجين لدعم نفسي متخصص.
Key challenge faced by children with disabilities due to climate change. 3 points. 1 point is health. Increased risk of high ED process and difficulty connecting and life today, and education. 2 point education, limited ability to learn effectively as schools are often closed during heavy rains or extreme heat. 3. Well-being, negative impact on mental health and overall well-being as they are unable to live a normal daily life under extreme climate conditions.
أهم الحلول والمقترحات اللي احنا لازم نتبعها عشان حياة الأطفال من ذوي الإعاقة تفضل في أمان. 1. توصيل صوت الأطفال ومشاركتهم في صنع القرار ودمجهم في السياسات. 2 توفير برامج توعية ودعم للأطفال من ذوي الإعاقة عشان يقدروا يتكيفوا مع التغيرات المناخية. 3 وجود تمويل عادل بيوفر لهم كل احتياجاتهم اللي هم بيحتاجوها، سواء كان من أجهزة طبية أو أي شيء هم بيحتاجوه.
Solution and recommendation provided to learner support and awareness session program that meets their specific needs to cope with impacts of climate change. 2 ensure the inclusion in the climate-related program and activities. 3 fundraising their program and participating in planning, discussion making process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Shakwan. Let's give him a round of applause. And thank you so much, all our child reps, director, and SEM union. Thank you so much. I hand over to you.
Thank you very much. I think they have children. Very loud, with the amazing. The key message we hopefully the children have communicated to me is that the child's rights crisis is the climate crisis is a child's rights crisis, and as adults we owe it to the future of the continent by ensuring that the climate action is to the needs of children. As someone once said, much easier to build strong children than to repair broken women and men. So we have an opportunity to plan for the future in the context of spoken. Thank you very much, everyone. Well done to you.
So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Excellent. We are going to have another very interesting side event on carbon dioxide removal. It's part of the continuation on looking at taking care of our environment. So if you wish to stay with the Honorable Minister and other very high level joining on to the next session, you're more than welcome to stay. Thank you so much. This session is starting in about 2 minutes. Thank you.